Well, let's discuss this with Romeo Kokriatski, who's in Kiev. He's the editor at the New Voice of Ukraine, the country's largest daily premier news resource. Appreciate you joining me. I don't know to what extent you can answer this. You've been able to gauge it, but what is the view in Ukraine, especially amongst the public, about the President Zelenskyy requesting cluster bombs?
I mean, it's not something that is overly celebrated. When the US agreed to send us heavy armor, people were nearly in the streets. It seemed like a huge move. This has not had the same resonance, but at the same time, Ukrainians do understand why we need this ammunition, why the government has requested the US supplies with this ammunition. And despite the downsides, it seems like it's the best choice militarily for us at this moment.
The fact that weapons are considered a step too far by, well, there's a growing number of countries, it seems. They have their concerns about the damage that they can do and just how effective they are. Why would Ukraine risk upsetting some of its allies?
Well, in one way, this is a consequence of the timidity and slowness that Europe has shown in supplying us with the arms that we have asked for. Ukraine has long asked for air support, significant modern air fighters, for cruise missiles, for precision munitions, and all of that, while some of that has come in, it's all come in a very slow trickle. Now that the counteroffensive is in full swing, the lack of these munitions that we've been asking for since February 2022 has become incredibly acute. And at this point, as they say, beggars can't be choosers. We need something to push through the heavily fortified Russian lines. And the current tactic of sweeping trenches, man by man, going down to hand combat is simply incredibly risky for our troops.
I understand from what you say the sense of urgency. Is there a fear? Has there been any kind of conversation about the dangers that these munitions could pose in the future to Ukrainian civilians? I'm talking about the unexploded duds.
In this case, it's seen kind of as a moot point, mainly because Russia has been using their own cluster munitions as artillery since the very first day of the invasion. So, to be honest, it's seen as no matter how much we use, especially with the U.S. munitions that they're sending us with a 2.35% failure rate compared to the Russians' 30 to 40% failure rates, it's seen as just a cost of war, unfortunately.
The feeling I'm getting, correct me if I'm wrong, that the sense I'm getting from the answers you're giving, the talk of the urgency, the need to get munitions coming in and not getting the ones that have been requested, and the risk in taking something controversial such as cluster bombs. Is there a feeling that Ukraine is struggling at the moment? Is there a sense of that perhaps things aren't going their way and that something needs to radically change?
I can't say that there is a feeling that something needs to radically change. Overall, Ukrainians seem to be widely satisfied with the military leadership that we've had so far, and even with the counteroffensive progress. Even though it seems slow, operational security has been incredibly tight, and getting accurate information obviously has been a challenge for the public. But from what we do know, things are going according to plan. At the same time, we can see more and more videos of these man-to-man trench clearings. And it's obvious basically to anyone that either we continue going man-to-man and clearing all of these heavily fortified lines of trenches one by one, over and over, or we start using something heavier to lessen the risk to our troops in the field.
And Romeo, we're just running out of time. I just very quickly want to ask you, is there still that sense of belief there? Do Ukrainians still feel they're going to win this war?
I mean, we've seen what's been going on in Russia in the last few months. We've seen the chaos in the Russian leadership. We've seen top generals reportedly being detained, leadership purges going on. With an enemy like this, it's hard to feel anything but optimistic.
Really appreciate your time. Pleasure to speak to you. Romeo Kokriatski is my guest. He's editor at the New Voice of Ukraine. That's the country's largest daily premier news resource.